Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today is going to be the 2021 preview of the Baltimore Ravens. So this is going to be me taking a look at all the players from the skill position side for the Baltimore Ravens for the 2021 redraft season, and mention kind of some potential dynasty sleepers if there are some along the way. So we're going to be taking a look at the ECR of each player, the expert consensus ranking, that's what that is, and the average draft position, so that's the ADP. If you hear me talk about those terms in through this. I took a look at the Arizona Cardinals the other day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you check that out as well. I'm going to be doing a little bit slightly different format today just so I can show you guys a little bit more visually on the Fantasy Pros website, where guys are going, who the players are that they're going around, and kind of my thoughts about that as well. So we'll start off with Lamar Jackson. He is the ECR quarterback 4 and the ADP quarterback 4 as well. I think this is pretty good range for him. Lamar Jackson, we've seen that quarterback one upside fantasy finish out of him 2 seasons ago. Definitely in the range of possibilities again. And then, about as bad as it's going to get is probably what we got out of him last year. So he's a pretty safe play. His overall position they do have here at 38. So beginning of the 4th round, I've seen him go into the 5th round a decent amount of times as well. Definitely could be a value there for the season, especially if there is an uptick in passing and passing efficiency this season. Then we move over to the running back position, and we have J.K. Dobbins. So J.K. Dobbins, obviously, the second-year player, had a very efficient rookie season. He comes in as the ECR running back 15 and the ADP running back 14. And all these are going to be for half-point PPR scoring formats. So if you play full-point PPR standard, it might vary just a little bit. Some of these guys that are behind J.K. Dobbins, in this case, are probably going to be ahead of him in full-point PPR. But in standard, he's probably going to be ahead of them still. At this point, you're looking at him 27th overall, end of the 2nd round, beginning of the 3rd round. Fairly decent value for him, but when he's going to get up against some of these other guys, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and DeAndre Swift, 2 other second-year players that do offer some in the receiving game, they're a little bit more enticing to me. And obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire tied to the offense that is the Kansas City Chiefs, probably going to be my number one. I do like DeAndre Swift a lot. I think he's going to be very involved in the offense for Detroit, so I probably go Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, and J.K. Dobbins myself personally. And then we're going to talk about his running mate, and that is Gus Edwards. So Gus Edwards is coming in at ECR 40 and going in as the ADP running back 41. So pretty close there together. He's kind of in this group of, I'm going to call it like second. They're the second guy on their team pretty much, but they could have some value. They have some standalone value, whether it's a flex play or if the starter would go down, they'd have quite a bit of value. So, you're looking at guys like Gus Edwards, A.J. Dillon, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, Latavius Murray, Kenyon Drake, guys like that. James Conner, you can throw in that mix too if you want to. So kind of this 37 to 43 type of range. It's pretty fair where he's going. I don't think I put him ahead of many of these other guys. Obviously, A.J. Dillon, Zach Moss, Kenyon Drake, they might have a little bit more upside than him because Gus Edwards really needs that J.K. Dobbins to be out for whatever reason to really hit his ceiling, because Lamar Jackson's going to be very involved running the ball in this offense. I do not expect that to change anytime soon, even if he does get that pretty big contract. They might tailor him back just a little bit, but I don't see it being a big factor overall for them. So Gus Edwards, where he's going in the draft, middle of the 9th round, 10th round, not too bad of value there. He's a guy that you can definitely plug in your lineups here and there, and he's going to pay off for you. And at least, if nothing else, gives you some depth at that running back position. Then we'll move over to wide receivers, and this is kind of the touchy subject for the Baltimore Ravens this year. Obviously, they were not comfortable with what they had at wide receiver, so they brought in veteran Sammy Watkins from the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, he's had his flashes over his career. He's been injured quite a bit as well. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Rashod Bateman, obviously the first-round pick out of the University of Minnesota. Big name profile there. Guy that I'm not quite as high on, and we might not see it in quite year one with him as well. And then my personal favorite was Tylan Wallace in the 4th round, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. And then we still have some mainstays as well with Hollywood Brown. I believe it's the 3rd year for him now. And then we got Miles Boykin, who's also a 3rd-year player, really hasn't done anything. Devin Duvernay, that showed some flashes last year, kind of on trick plays, end arounds, kick returns, stuff like that. And then James Prochet out of SMU, that was mainly used as a punt returner last season. But we're going to start off with Marquise Brown. Hollywood Brown, is a lot of people like to call him. So in ADP, he's coming in at wide receiver 41, and ECR, he's coming in at wide receiver 48. I'd probably lean more to the ECR side just because you're looking at some of these guys that he's going around. You got a Brandon Cooks, a Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Antonio Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., Laviska Shenault, Curtis Samuel, maybe even throw Michael Gallup in there. The guys that he's going around, there's just a lot of more upside with some of these other guys. And, he's going to be kind of that boomer bust player, probably, most likely. I don't see his role changing like majorly with Rashod Bateman being in there, but he might lose some target volume as well. So he's still going to be that deep threat in the offense. If he's scoring a touchdown, you're going to be happy with him some weeks. If he's not, you're probably not going to be as happy with him other weeks as well. So, drafting him as your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, I don't really have a problem with that, but that 41, probably a little bit closer to the 48 is where I want to fall in. Then we move down to Rashod Bateman, who comes in as wide receiver 59 in ECR and wide receiver 57 in ADP. This is a little bit early for me. Like I said, I don't think the target volume is going to be there for him year one. A lot of people are falling in love with the talent in the pre-draft process. He wasn't quite up there for me. I think he's a guy, maybe it takes him a year or two to adjust to the NFL level. And then if you're talking about how the Baltimore Ravens have not thrown the ball quite a bit, you're still competing with targets with a guy like Hollywood Brown, a guy like Mark Andrews. They're both proven, and Lamar Jackson has some type of chemistry with already. You got a veteran in Sammy Watkins coming in. Say what you want about Sammy Watkins. He's still going to find a way onto the field. They said he's looking really good in camp, as always, pretty much always the case with him. But, that calf injury is going to pop up sooner or later. And then you got that other rookie in Tylan Wallace that I do like a ton. You got another second-year player in Devin Duvernay. And then you got that third-year player, Miles Boykin. Maybe he finally makes that third-year jump. So Rashod Bateman's not somebody I'm really buying, for say, in redraft purposes. He'd have to fall probably closer to wide receiver 70 for me to be in on him. But in Dynasty, if you can get him in that second round of your rookie draft, I do not have a problem drafting him there. But when you're talking about some of these other guys in redraft that you could be drafting around him, Cole Beasley, I know everybody's kind of got their thoughts about him, but he's about as consistent as it comes, especially for like a wide receiver 4. You look up a little bit higher, you got guys like Corey Davis, Marvin Jones, definitely in a tier above Rashod Bateman. Darnell Mooney and Gabriel Davis, the upside is so much greater with both those players as compared to Rashod Bateman. Russell Gage offers a safe floor and a little bit of upside as well. And then you got guys like Nelson Aguilar, Rondell Moore that could offer a little bit of upside as well. So a lot of options in this range that I'm really trying to take ahead of Rashod Bateman. Then we kind of move down to those other wide receivers, and these we'll move down to Sammy Watkins first. Obviously, he is that veteran wide receiver. Comes in as wide receiver 80 in ADP, and then wide receiver 79 in ECR. So pretty much the same range there. At this point in the draft, you're looking at guys that you're taking shots on anyway, so why not take a shot on Sammy Watkins? The last couple of years, he's been really great in the first week of the season, and then kind of not done much after that. He's one of those guys that's super unpredictable. At this range, you're looking at guys like Randall Cobb, Nico Collins, Josh Palmer, Amari Rodgers, Brashad Perriman, Jacoby Myers, Tyrell Williams. These are all guys you're going to have to take a shot on anyways, and you're just kind of hoping one of them hits. And this is going to be one of the last picks in your draft anyways. So if they don't pan out week one, you just cut them for whoever the hot waiver wire of the week is. So in this range, Sammy Watkins is a guy I don't mind taking. I don't mind taking a shot on Nico Collins. I don't mind taking a shot on Jacoby Myers or Tyrell Williams either. Even Olamide Zaccheaus, that's down here just a little bit further. He's a guy that I've taken a shot on myself quite a bit. Best ball drafts, Scott Fishbowl. That Atlanta passing game, somebody's going to have to catch the ball, and why not him? He was just playing on the outside when Russell Gage was playing on the inside. So he's a name to keep in mind as well. I'm going to be doing some sleepers and breakout videos as well, kind of once I get done with some of this team series and kind of in between there as well. So there's going to be a lot of names there. Definitely want to check those out. I'll probably try to do it even position by position. So sleeper quarterbacks, sleeper running backs, sleeper wide receivers, and sleeper tight ends. But we're going to get moving on still. So we're moving way, way down because these other guys are pretty much not even getting drafted. Actually, in ADP, they're not getting drafted at all. So I'm just going to go over to my notebook real quick, and we have Devin Duvernay is wide receiver 127 in ECR, undrafted. Otherwise, he is a guy that I'm fine with stashing in Dynasty. He's a guy that I really liked. But then, they brought in Rashod Bateman. They brought in Tylan Wallace too. So he's a guy that could find himself in a role, whether it's that slot wide receiver, that trick play guy. And if something happens to somebody else, he could really break out. He's a guy I did like a lot coming out of Texas, though. So I think he's worth a Dynasty taxi squad spot if you have one available. Then Tylan Wallace, I've talked a ton about him on my channel already. Guy that I really like coming out of Oklahoma State, 6 foot tall, 190 some pounds, can just go up and get the ball. And Lamar Jackson is not the best thrower of the football, not the most accurate guy in the world. So Tylan Wallace is a guy that if he gains that trust of Lamar Jackson, he could really find his way onto the field. And especially if Sammy Watkins gets hurt, he could be out there in 3 wide receiver sets sooner rather than later. But he was coming in at ECR 126 and undrafted in ADP. But he's a guy, if you're out there in Dynasty, if you can get him in the 3rd round of your rookie draft, if he's available on waiver wires for some odd reason, go pick him up right now. Then last but not least, we got Miles Boykin, who oddly enough comes in at 110 in ECR and undrafted in ADP. I don't see it with him. He's kind of this big physical, kind of athletic profile wide receiver, and he just hasn't turned into anything at the NFL level. I think he's more likely to get cut than even make the team, so I'm not interested in him in Dynasty at all. Same kind of thing with James Prochet. I think he has a role on the team. Maybe he's that punt returner, kind of special team guy, but I don't really trust him. I don't really want him in Dynasty at this point in time. Devin Duvernay could even take over his punt returning role along with kick returning duties, so that could really knock him off and make him very expendable, and he was still a low profile draft guy as well. So that's pretty much a wrap on the wide receivers. Overall, not a lot of great value there, but if this team turns into the Buffalo Bills all of a sudden from 2020 and starts throwing the ball a little bit more, then maybe there is some value to this passing game. But until we see that, it's kind of hard to predict which one of these guys is going to break out, where the target volume is going to go. And it's just kind of like mental gymnastics at this point in time. But I think there's I think there could be some value here long term, but probably not in the 2021 season. So we're going to move over to tight end real quick, and that is obviously going to be Mr. Mark Andrews. So in ECR, he comes in as the tight end 4. In ADP, he comes in as the tight end 5. Me, myself, personally, I'm at tight end 5. I have TJ Hawkinson ahead of him, Kyle Pitts behind him. And if you look at the ECR, he's 4. TJ Hawkinson's 5 and Kyle Pitts is 6. And ADP, Kyle Pitts is 4. Mark Andrews is 5 and TJ Hawkinson is 6. So this is kind of that second tier group of tight ends, and you can kind of mix and match them however you want, just based on how you think these teams' outcomes are going to go. If you think Kyle Pitts is going to have this crazy rookie year, maybe you have him a little bit higher. But for me personally, I have Mark Andrews slightly ahead of Kyle Pitts at this point in time, and TJ Hawkinson ahead of both of them at this point in time as well. Where Mark Andrews is going right now, you're looking at probably the middle of the 5th round. That's a fair value for him there. Just keep in mind, if you're like looking at him like you did last year, he's kind of boom bust tight end. So hopefully that kind of irons out. As the season went along, they kind of fed him his targets, but is that going to happen with Hollywood Brown, Rashod Bateman, Sammy Watkins, Tylan Wallace, all these other guys here now? Is he going to take a dip, or is his 7 targets per game pretty safe at this point in time? I would lean more on the side of it being safe, but we'll just have to see. But I think Mark Andrews is still a solid tier tight end if you're looking at round 5 tight ends. But that's a quick little overview on the main positions, the average draft positions, the ADPs for these skill position players. Go back over to the depth chart, see if there's anybody we missed potentially for a dynasty stash, and talking about the offensive line real quick before we get out of here. So the offensive line, Ronnie Stanley's coming back this year off that ankle injury that he did suffer last year. Orlando Brown did get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Center position was kind of a mess last year for the Baltimore Ravens. Looks like they're going to have Bradley Bozeman or Patrick McCarra in there for this season. They'll be battling out in camp. Kevin Zeitler was added at right guard, so that should be a little bit of an improvement there. And then we got Ben Brenson and rookie Ben Cleveland that are battling out for the left guard spot. Looks like Ben Cleveland has a non-football injury at this point in time, so maybe Brenson wins that job out of camp. Then Alejandro Villanueva comes over from the Pittsburgh Steelers to replace Orlando Brown. At this point in time, you kind of have to say that's a little bit of a downgrade. So overall, I'd probably say their offensive line's about what it was last year. A little bit of improvements at some spots and a little bit of down improvements at other spots. We'll see if these guys can stay healthy and really just pave the way for that running game once again. Don't really see too many changes in the offensive scheme overall, but maybe they throw the ball just a little bit more this season. But if Lamar Jackson can take a step up as a passer, it's going to make him very interesting for fantasy and maybe some of these receiving options as well. But with that being said, that's all I have for the Baltimore Ravens for the 2021 football season. So this is pretty much a recap overall for the 2021 redraft season for the Baltimore Ravens. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. And with that being said, if you guys are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Definitely helps build the channel. And here at Coach Craig Sports, my goal is really to make this content for you, the viewer, make it stuff that you guys enjoy. So if there's any changes you'd like to see, if anything that you thought I missed, definitely be sure to leave it down in the comments. Definitely here to help you guys out with your fantasy football needs, your DFS needs, whether it's NBA or NFL. And then as we get moving closer into the season, into NFL draft time, I'll be covering some NFL draft prospects for the 2022 draft as well. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. And as always, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.